Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your AV and tech-related questions 365 days a year. Guy will be reading the questions today. Guy, what's our first question?
First one in from Harold Williams in Portsmouth, and his question is, I like the idea of turning a Mac Mini into an appliance. What if I disable all unnecessary services and let Wirecast run as kiosk? What am I missing?
Alex.
Well, in the discussions that we've had previously about this, about using your Mac Mini as an appliance, which is something I'm experimenting with, both as an encoder and as a decoder, I really want something much more low level than an app. So I mean, if I'm running an app, I want it to take over. I don't want it to be designed as an app or run as an app. I don't want any other features. I want it to be able to do one thing really, really well and kind of ignore everything else. That's how, that's for me, that's how an appliance works. So, so by having Wirecast has got a lot more than what you need for this kind of thing. So I wouldn't probably lean on it to be the only thing that was running there. You can definitely do that. I don't know if I'd pick Wirecast as the thing that I would make as the only thing that was running there. It may have gotten better. Its stability has been a challenge, with Wirecast for the last decade. So that'd be the only thing that I'd be worried about.
Jeffrey.
So yeah, with Wirecast, I will say that it makes an awesome kiosk for things, because I've tried it with vMix, I've tried it with OBS. They don't really work as kiosks. So yeah, but yeah, there is a stability issue when you're talking about with Mac, with Wirecast, and yeah, eventually after about 48 to 72 hours, you're going to have to reboot that thing or close out Wirecast and go back in. But there are some new softwares out there, and of course you have MimoLive and Ecamm, which are more native to Mac Mini, and then of course the free software, OBS, as I said, but there's another one called Meld, M-E-L-D, that you can give it a try, and then of course you're not spending the money, but it would work that well, and it really depends on the Mac. I do have a couple appliances that some Mac Minis are running on that do similar stuff to that. So if you've got the latest and greatest Mac Mini, you might be doing overkill, but if you got like an old Mac M1, that might work perfect.
Guy.
Yeah, we've done quite a few of these as builds using MimoLive. So I'm familiar with Wirecast on the PC side, and I just opened it up to see if there was a kiosk mode, and even just Googled it to see if there was a dedicated kiosk mode, because to me it means lock out the user without a secret little way of disabling kiosk mode. So I'm not sure if that's actually a feature in there. When I Googled it, I didn't see a way of locking people out. So in MimoLive, we developed something called the One Button Studio, and we've sold hundreds of these things where they go in libraries. So you don't want these kids coming in and messing things up and getting into the MimoLive document and, changing things. So that feature was built for us. So we actually have a mode that you go into and it locks everybody out unless you press the special little key sequence to unlock it. So the idea of using a Mac Mini as an appliance, it's a great way to go, but I do say that we restart it every night. So even though it's sitting in a library, we have a script that restarts it so that in the morning it's fresh. So if anything happened, it clears out any errors. There's no possible way of error. And then we also have a way of remoting into those machines. So a couple things to think about on your journey.
Next question. Guy?
Oh, sorry, that's me. Craig Kadoki, Toronto, Canada, asking, does anyone know what drone was being used for the World Series game last night? And what did you think of the footage that flew low between the infield and outfield players?
Mr. Lindsay.
Yeah, I think that what Craig is referring to, I believe, is this shot here, or one of the this might have been one of the shots here. So this is a pretty fun shot that's kind of coming down from the rafters, passing right past people and flying around and really giving you a sense of what it feels like to be there. My guess is that is a sub 250 gram FPV, a first person video. So that's pretty much what you would do. You can't use anything typically over 250 grams. There's very few rules under 250 grams, and usually they're protected. Their blades are protected, and they they're very, very small. From the video quality, it also looks like it was probably a small one. It's not like it's the best video quality you can get, but it's a really cool shot. So that's my guess is a 249 gram FPV. There is or one in drone mode. So like the little flip that DJI makes is one of the options, but there's a variety of little ones, and people make specialty ones just for production. So they don't look pretty. They're not. There's nothing nice about them, and they're high performance, and they've got really good cameras on them.
Chris.
I don't watch the sports balls, but I used to work on them. And that shot that you just showed, Alex, it didn't look like it was a really full stadium. And one thing to keep in mind that a lot of times when you're watching it, and I know this because I used to work on it, a lot of times when you're watching, especially stuff that airs in the first portion of the game, quite often it's big sections of stuff that's pre-recorded and then re-racked and rolled back in so that the beginning of the show is super tight. Happens a lot, and it didn't look really full.
You can see that it is pre-show. I mean, it is like the guys are talking, so it's before the game.
It's not shoulder to shoulder. So that would make it a little bit safer.
Yeah,
a little bit safer. But yeah, it's probably one of the little tiny ones.
Well, and with drones, a lot of times the transmission's going to break up. There's all kinds of other things. And so you would definitely want to shoot this and roll it into an EVS and then play it back out. And that would be the absolute way that they would do any of these shots. Most of the shots that you see of even like the blimp and everything else, I mean, some of them are live, but a lot of them are.
Well, I've done live blimp shots where I had to unplug outside of we got the blimp shot on a cable, and then I had to unplug and sprint to the field to get the team on a 49er game. The team coming out of the tunnel, like those were our two.
Well, the funny thing now is that like almost all the time when the team comes out of that's all banked. So the team running out is banked. The all those interviews of the coaches when they came running out, those are all banked. Oftentimes even just people coming off the field after they've been injured, when you come out of a commercial break, a lot of times that gets banked as well.
If you ever get a chance to go to a major sporting event just as an observer, with some sort of access back, with the crew, it's the most amazing television there is.
Yeah, 100%.
Next question.
Next one in from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York, asking, I need to convert MiniDV to a digital format. I only have VHS to VHS and VHS to DVD conversion tools in my setup, so how can I accomplish this?
I'm going to switch the order here. Guy, go ahead.
Yeah, I've done quite a bit of this, and my first question would be, how many do you need to do? Because this is where looking for a service that you could just ship the tapes to, or even better, local, where you could just drive them over so that if they are important ones, they don't get lost in the mail. The tool that I used was a deck that I bought off of eBay, and the reason why I'm going to recommend this one is because there's something special about these. If you go searching for them, you could almost get your money back if you are patient and wait to buy one of these, but they're called the DSR 1500A. The A denotes that you can put a card in. So the ones that I'm seeing right now for like $200 don't have the card. So what you're looking for in the back here is SDI output card. So then you can buy a little converter that will do SDI, and that gives you the best input. Otherwise, you're dealing with a bunch of FireWire dongles that is a nightmare, especially with Tahoe. It actually ended with Tahoe. You can't do FireWire natively. It ended with Sonoma. So either buy an old Mac, but the hardware and all the process of going through this is a lot of work. So unless you're doing dozens of these, it's probably not worth your time. And it's better just to, as I said at the beginning, farm it out to somebody else.
Alex.
Yeah, unless you have more than 10 of these, farm it out. So if you've got a whole slew of them, you might want to do that. But I just was unpacking a bunch of stuff and found about 40 of them, and I'm still going to farm them out. I'm not going to try to figure out how to. It's not going to add up. And you have people that do this every single day. A lot of those tapes are old. You don't want to have them, get washed away. So I would definitely farm it out.
Next question.
Next question coming in from Kent Kaholsky in Madison, Ohio, asks, I know Opus.pro as a close beta of Opus Agent. To clip a blog post into a video, I do a news channel and was wondering, is there anything else out there that can do an AI blog news article into a video? I am on the waiting list, but would like to try it out.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit dangerous by taking somebody else's blog post and turning it into something, if I'm understanding how this is going to work. But with AI, there's a lot of things. I just tried this, and I don't know if it worked perfectly, but yeah, as some of you might know, I'm actually on Sora, and I've been doing a lot of videos there. So I just took one of my blog posts and said, hey, create it as a news style section. I'm not going to play the audio because I don't know how it's going to sound, but it did take it, and even with the link, it took it, and I'll review it in a second here to see if it actually turned it into something from there. But I have a feeling that you'll see a lot of other AI agents that have that ability to turn a blog post into something more video or audio related.
Alex.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a fatigue about AI that people are going to be. I still feel like just be careful of how much you jump into it or how much you invest in it. I think experimenting with it, obviously, I use a ton of AI. And for brainstorming, getting things done, thinking through things, I love AI to do a lot of those things. When it comes to delivering content, I find myself, like when Sora came out, I was really just loving making things, watching things. I was surprised by things, but it quickly faded for me. And I think it was like, oh, you like strawberries? Here's 800 pounds of strawberries, until you can't eat strawberries anymore. Because people can produce it so quickly, they just suddenly, you had everything. Every time something was remotely funny, everyone would do it. There'd be some version of it, and then you get tired of it, And so I think that there's because of the lack of constraint in the ability to produce the content, I think that anything that does well becomes boring remarkably quickly. And so I think I'm very excited about AI. I think that the ability to describe things, visualize things, look at history, look at ideas, look at, this is all going to get better and better and better. I think that you may find that from a news outlet, maybe people want to see someone say something in video based on it. I don't really watch that much of a talking head just delivering news to me. I think that's kind of a format that I don't know how long that has to go. I'm sorry if I know your news. Probably a horrible thing for me to tell you, but I don't know how long people want someone to read the news to them. But I do think that you're right, and I'm assuming when you're saying an AI, like a blog or a news article, it would be one of your news articles. Like you could write something and then have it turn it into a video. And I think that there might be some people that want that delivered in video. It could possibly work, but I just be careful that I think people are going to become more and more fatigued because AI is so easy to produce. We're just seeing it everywhere, and I think that I find even myself, who's pretty excited about AI, to be a little fatigued about watching it.
Jeffrey.
So I agree on that, what Alex is saying, but I can see this being used in some other ways, like a curated situation. Like, for instance, I'm here and I'm talking to people and I just want to take a couple minutes to grab a cup of coffee or something like that. So I could create something that would then be played within a show. And I like the idea that going through Sora, because it does do the watermark, because then if anybody is like, I don't want to watch anything AI, they see that watermark and they can move on from there. But like I said, I've been using it for the last 2 weeks now, and just tons of content that I'm coming out with, things that I never thought I'd do. Like I just did one with two sharks talking back and forth to each other, which, I'm not in the animation, so it's kind of a little bit off my beaten path, and I really like that idea. Plus, it's all about learning about those prompts and learning how to make exactly what you're looking for. I had one where I was running through piles of leaves, and I just really scripted it as best as possible. So I think that it could be done, and maybe there's going to be points where if you try to go like to CNET or something like that, there are back-end features that say, hey, I don't want you to do anything. If you see an AI bot come to my site, you just block it straight up. So you might not be able to do it for everything, but you could go into some of these AI programs and say, hey, I want a news person to talk about what's happening in the East Wing or something like that. And it'll actually create something that could be used as newsworthy material.
Chris.
I think in the world of news, we're always going to have somebody sitting in front of a camera telling us the news. I mean, that's not going to go away. And the reason it's not going to go away is it's the cheapest and fastest way to disseminate, sorry about that, After Effects, to disseminate an idea. I'm going to sit in front of this camera and I'm going to tell you something. You'll never is a big word. You'll probably never get rid of that. It's just going to be part of news dissemination, right? Am I wrong about that?
Anyone want to take the bait?
I think all I'd say is that I don't know the last time I really watched anybody deliver me news via video or audio. Like I don't, like, it's so rare for me to watch. It's
not, Alex. It is absolutely the bell curve. You're on the fringe.
No, I understand.
90% of the people get their news is watching somebody on
90% of people over 50. Like I would say that I
might go to 48. But yeah.
Okay, 48.
But I
think that the vast majority, when I look at, I mean, what I'm amazed at is how many, and this is both, interesting and scary, is how many kids get their news from TikTok. Like it's and so that's another argument for AI trying to meet people where they are. But I don't think that I don't know a lot of kids, a lot of folks my kids' age that are watching any talking heads or listening to any news in that way. And I grew up, and maybe it's too young. When I was 12, I was watching that stuff. So sorry, go ahead.
I said I retract my comment. I was wrong.
I don't know.
We can move on.
I don't know if you're wrong,
do your
Chris.
thing. There's not wrong. It's just different. All right, next question.
Next one is from Paul Wallace asking, how can sound engineers optimize binaural and ambisonic audio techniques for personalized HRTF, which stands for head-related transfer function, experiences using tools like Sony Tempest 3D or Embody headphones?
Alex.
From my understanding, a lot of this personalization really comes from the playout. It's not really something the engineers do. They build the thing ready for it to be personalized by your settings or what it sets up. They're not trying to build it for you. One thing that is important is having objects. So objects being delivered to the user, because those objects can be then manipulated. They're not just simply a space. Now, what you're seeing is Apple is doing an enormous amount of work inside of the new Apple Spatial Audio Format, ASAF. And the Apple Positional Audio Codec, APAC. So these are words that you're going to probably hear bouncing around a lot as Apple starts to roll those out. Right now, Apple built a set of plugins that are available in Pro Tools for these, and they're also embedded completely into Resolve. And so those are the two places that you can work on those. But what it allows you to do is have potentially up to hundreds of objects that are being delivered via an ambisonic space, and I think that right now it's up to five orders of ambisonic as the simulation there, and you can have hundreds of objects in that space. Those are still going to get baked down, but it's no longer being pushed into beds or into specific channels. It is in an ambisonic space that you sit inside of as you move around, which allows them to continue to manipulate that. It will also support, in addition to that ambisonic space, it'll support, I believe, up to 15 objects. That then can also be that can be used that are very specific to what you're doing. So that's where a lot of this is going. That's the big format now. And now if you have Atmos of course can support 128 objects. Some of those being beds, and those are going to be kind of grounded, and then the other ones are going to be the objects, and they can also theoretically be able to be manipulated there. But a lot of the head-related transfer function is really done inside of the player that you're using, not necessarily inside the creation of the content.
Next question.
Next one in from Bon Francisco in Fairfax, California, asking, trying to create a YouTube video using BlackMagic camera. Can I use my iPhone 16 Pro Max iOS 26 to control my M2 iPad Pro?
Yeah, so you can control the BlackMagic camera. Now, I haven't tried to go from phone to iPad, and I guess what I would say is I would go the other direction if you're going to do this. So I wouldn't want to control my iPad. You want to control your phone. The phone has a better camera, so don't control the iPad to shoot anything. You want to use your iPad to control the phone. I've done this back and forth between two phones. In fact, you can have multiple phones controlling each other through the BlackMagic camera. Where you need to do that is down at near the bottom of the settings inside of BlackMagic, you can define your camera as either a controller or a remote. And so if you set the camera as remote, and then you open up another BlackMagic camera in another iOS device, you can set that as a controller. And when you set it as a controller, and I don't have a way to screen share right now. I was going to try to show it to you, but when you open up the camera app, you'll see three little dots. They don't look like much, but there's three little dots that are over. Typically, if you're holding it up, it'll be on your left side. There'll be three little dots there. You click on it, and it pops open, and you'll see one that looks like a little remote. And you click on it, it'll show you what's available. It'll be any of the cameras. It can be other BlackMagic cameras. I'll see my not my immersive camera, but the immersive camera I was using. I'll see the immersive camera. I'll see other BlackMagic cameras. You can set those up. Now, the other thing that you can do is have it sync settings. So not only can you start and stop and everything else and see and control the camera, but you can also, anything you're changing on the camera on your phone will change on the other phone. So, and I've been doing this with a stereo rig, so it's important to have both of them exactly the same ISO, the same, focus, the same, all those things are there. And so you can have two phones talking to each other and following it. Now you can't have more than two phones that are remote to the controller. I have found that there's some bugs and not all of the settings are syncing. So, because what I want to be able to do is have a third phone controlling two iPhones so that I can control them inside of a rig together. And haven't been able to get that to work. It'll control one, but not the other. So anyway, so that's the, you should be able to do it. I haven't tried to do it between an iPad and an iPhone. I've been 2 weeks ago, all I was doing, like every half hour, was controlling the phones to each other and using the phone to control an immersive camera. So that part definitely works well.
Next question.
Next one in from Dean West in Los Angeles, and this is a QR code. I'm an artist dabbling in generative art. I work in the Mac ecosystem, and I'm very interested in the DGX Spark by NVIDIA. I want to use the Spark to assist in creating a VR open world environment with thousands of agentic NPCs. Is the Spark the right tool?
Alex.
I would look at some of the Google tools as well as far as world generation. I don't know, but I haven't really dug too deeply into the kind of building lots of agentic non-player characters or NPCs. So I don't know enough about that. I will say that generally NVIDIA and Apple don't play well together. So if you're looking at an NVIDIA Spark, you're probably going down the path of needing a PC to make all of that kind of come together. So so that would be the only thing that I would think about in that process. But I don't know enough about that specifically. But also Google's making some pretty good world building tools as well.
If you're watching the show on YouTube, you're missing half the show. OfficeHours.global/join gets you into Makana and Discord, where you can chat and interact with other producers. OfficeHours.global/join. That's OfficeHours.global/join. Next question.
Next one in from David Arsenault in Bonaventure QC. Where is QC? I think that's Canada. I updated NDI tools from 5.2 to 6.2.1 on Sequoia 15.6.1, and NDI Monitor is not showing me my sources anymore, even if MimoLive does. Any ideas?
Alexander.
Yeah, so I'm not really much of an NDI user, but the thing is with MimoLive is that everything related to NDI inside of MimoLive is self-contained. So it has integration via the NDI SDK, Software Developer Kit. So you actually don't need the NDI tools installed on that computer to make the NDI work. Now, if there are other tools that are part of that package that you need, then it would make sense to install it. But so I can't speak to that, but I just wanted to let you know that you do not need NDI tools to make NDI work or look at sources in NDI inside of MimoLive.
Guy.
Yeah, I would do a restart. And by the way, QC's for Quebec. Our fellow Canadian here, Alexander, I'm surprised you're not the one that just let everybody know for your country. I would restart the computer to make sure that everything's updated. It could be somewhere in the MDNS where there's some old information. And so MimoLive's able to refresh and see what's going on in there. But maybe since you installed it, it had the old data still in there, so it may need to kick out some of the temporary files that are stored there. So try giving your computer a restart and see if that helps.
Jeffrey.
I'd also restart the router, especially if you have your cameras on different segments. They might be thinking something else, and so by restarting the computer, restarting the router, that will allow you to start with a fresh slate.
Next question.
Next one in from Alex Lindsay of Novato, California, stating, I broke the rules and took some footage I wasn't supposed to. I'm ready to spill the beans.
Spill them, Alex.
So my daughter's part of SF Jazz has this kind of mentoring program, and so she's down there once a week to be trained, and they probably going to get her in trouble. No, I won't get her in trouble. Anyway, so she wanted to Jacob Collier was in town yesterday, and he had we found out later why, but they opened up his sound check so that you could buy relatively inexpensive tickets to go see Jacob Collier's sound check. Now we've gotten to the point where they're selling sound check tickets, and it was worth every penny. I would have rather watched I would watch every sound check that he does at least. Here's what this was at the main. I can't think of the Performing Arts Center there in San Francisco. A gorgeous space. And if you look at it here, so he had an orchestra. Now here's the interesting thing about the orchestra. He did this kind of, and I'll explain why, but he did this impromptu show, and there was no orchestra available, so he crowdsourced one from his followers. Wow. So they had to send in videos of them playing. He said they picked the most sparkly ones, as he said, to have this. So this orchestra was all. This is the first time they got to play together. This is the incredible setup with mics and reflectors, and there's a lot there. This is an incredible space. He is kind of I haven't been a big listener of his music. But I will say that what a force of nature. Like, the guy is a mixture of a bundle of energy, incredibly musically talented, and I entirely new respect. He would listen to that whole orchestra and then pick out these like 4 different things and say, "Can we do this at this key? Can you use this type of when you're hitting the drums, I need you to use a harder stick." Like he hears everything, but he's also comes across as kind of this zany guy that's there, and so he very, very personal. You feel like he has the audience sing with him, so he was conducting us to sing with him, which works. You just don't think it's going to work, and it totally works. So here he is, kind of fun. His mother tours with him. His mother is she's the conductor in the red there, and so obviously she came from a classical trained. She plays the violin a little bit later, incredibly well. And so and then you can see kind of here's their. I don't think you won't be able to hear it, but he's he just plays and there, but also. Bobby McFerrin showed up. He's like, "You wouldn't believe my hero is," and if you've ever listened to Jacob Collier, you know that his hero is Bobby McFerrin. Bobby McFerrin lives in the Bay Area. He lives up in Sebastopol.
He just showed up?
He made it sound like he just showed up. The issue is that this was added to his tour because he showed up. So Bobby McFerrin, every Monday in Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, Bobby McFerrin does this little singing circle, and my family keeps on going, "Oh, we got to go see Bobby McFerrin," and we just haven't been able to go do it. I guess 3 or 4 months ago, Jacob Collier showed up at Bobby McFerrin's singing circle and just sang with everybody and hung out with them and talked to him. But he talks about the fact that in the sound check that Bob McFerrin is, why he is who he is. Like it's that was when he was a little kid. That's who he listened to, and that's why he has such an agility with his voice. And so Bob McFerrin came out, and the two of them just riffed against each other for like 10 or 15 minutes, and listening to them it's basically, think of like jazz instruments, except it's all voices, and they're just singing back and forth, and one person does one thing and the other person does something else, and it was unbelievable. And so, they're singing there. And then Bob McFerrin came up and they started playing this Mozart piece, and Bob McFerrin came out and directed it and conducted it. And it turned out, Jacob outlined later, that the reason this whole thing exists, the reason he had a concert later that night, the reason that there was a sound check is because Bob McFerrin wanted to conduct this one piece from Mozart, which I can't think of the name of right now. No, it's one that we've heard before anyway. But Bobby McFerrin had said he always wanted to do that in front of a lot of people, and so Jacob just made it happen. like he's like, I can do, I'm going to try to make this happen, and so that was, so here you can see, I think I got a little bit of it. There's Bobby, Anyway, it's just an interesting thing, and so I will say that again, if you haven't heard of Jacob Collier, go up and see him on YouTube, and he does a lot of things. If you get a chance to see him live, go see him live. An amazing, you just don't get to see an anomaly like that very often. Like he is a human anomaly. And you don't get to see that kind of greatness. And again, I kind of went down because I said I was going to go down. I was really busy. I was like, I got to see this guy because you've seen all this behind the scenes of him getting the audience to sing back and forth, and I do concerts, and how do we get that to work with what I'm doing? And so I felt like it was good research, but I just was blown away by that guy, by Jacob Collier. And so now we got to, especially if you see Soundcheck, what was incredible is to watch someone who is he pitch perfect, he has perfect pitch. His range, I don't know, is it sounds like it's like 6 octaves. It's like incredible of where he can go. And then he composes everything, or a lot of it. But what was incredible is he's zany and he's just having fun. And then he'll pick out the most, like the sound check, like him talking, I need you to do this a little bit more. When you came in there, and it's like, he can hear everything. But I would argue that is, I'm going to say something very, over the top. That is the closest that we have in our lifetime. That'll be the closest we get to Mozart. That's who that is. And his music isn't for everyone, just like Mozart's wasn't for everyone at the time. But the closest we get to someone with that much talent and that much specific, and that much technical talent as well as performance talent, that's as close as we get to Mozart in our lifetime. So, and I didn't think that until this evening, or yesterday evening. So definitely get an opportunity. You're not going to, I don't know how hopefully he lives a long life. We all get an opportunity to see him, but I will see him every time he comes to town again after seeing what I saw last night. And I was kind of just like, we'll see how it goes. So anyway, that's all I got to say.
Yeah. +1 on that. They are both truly virtuosos. Next question.
Next one in from Brian Taylor in Washington, D.C. Whoa.
We got double click there. Stand back. Everyone stand back. There we go. I think I fixed it. Did I fix it?
Got to wind back the teleprompter here. We'll get there.
There we go. Brian Taylor in Washington, D.C. is asking, is Davinci Resolve's Fusion graphics engine the BlackMagic equivalent of Adobe Premiere mogrts? They don't appear as easy to edit as mogrts in Premiere. Alex.
I have to admit, I don't know enough about mogrts in Premiere to know if they're equivalent or not. So I was going to say they might be. I don't know if you're going in and I don't know if mogrts are if those are XML or other things that you can go in and edit themselves. But I find that the Fusion graphics engine, as far as being able to edit it with the nodes, to me is the way I think. So it's really easy for me to think in nodes, and so. Nodes are not so I find that the Fusion process to be very straightforward. But I haven't used Premiere in a real project for a long time, 20 years. So
same. Next
question.
Last
time I think I got paid to do it, specifically.
Next one in from Chris Knobloch in Landstuhl, Germany, asking, when it comes to creating wiring or workflow diagrams, is there a standard naming convention for labeling the different cabling types, SDI, XLR, network? Thank you.
Alexander.
I think everybody has their own way of doing this kind of stuff. When somebody says, is there a standard, there's no body that has ratified a standard that's being documented for this kind of thing. So I think everybody kind of does their own thing.
Next question.
Next one's Jeff Veely in Henderson, Texas, asking, is there a place to sell used gear within office hours? I have a brand new Composite Components green screen that I'd love to offer to the community before posting elsewhere.
Alex.
2 things. One is, no, there isn't. And the reason we don't do that is, now the green screen would probably be easier, But with electronics and everything else, we're just always afraid of bad blood. You buy something used, you get it, it doesn't work, and then there's just lots of back and forth, and we just haven't been very concerned about that creating a flow. The second thing is that my son's school needs a green screen. Depending on how big yours are, you should contact me directly in Discord because I might want to get it for their school. So anyway, let me know how big it is, and we'll see what we can do there.
Next question.
Ryan Thomason in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, asking for Alex, have you seen this new AVP plugin for WebEx and thoughts? And he's got a link here to a blog.
Alex, go ahead.
I haven't seen the WebEx one. My guess is that WebEx is trying. Here we go. Let me pull this over here. Oh, sorry. My last presentation meant I was in full screen, and now I got to get out of full screen. So here is this is what they have here. So you can look at objects. I mean, I think that this is where this very much feels where Zoom was, almost immediately after the Apple Vision Pro was released. So it doesn't look like I don't see anything if you have WebEx, this is great. This is not a reason to get WebEx because Zoom already does all of these things. So, and FaceTime also does a lot of the stuff. FaceTime is actually pretty amazing inside the Vision Pro in the sense that you really just kind of place everybody around and can talk to them and bring models in. And I know that there are people who complain about the weight. I see that all the time on Twitter. I just have never had that experience, and maybe
Did you get the new head strap? It's pretty awesome.
I haven't gotten the new head strap yet. I just have the one that just goes. The one that I have is just this one that goes over the top here, and I've never had that. That was just like I think you would definitely have a weight problem if you use the back strap. That was not a great experience, but the anyway. So I've been in FaceTime meetings with 3 or 4 other people for hours, and looking at models, talking, and it just feels after the first couple minutes, it just feels like you're just kind of talking to people. It's really interesting. So I think it's the right direction. I think WebEx is popular at WebEx is used at Apple, for a variety of their meetings and so on and so forth. So I'm sure that there was some pressure for WebEx the problem that WebEx has is that they're way behind, and somehow Apple keeps them around. So they have to keep on adding features to probably keep the company. So because it's kind of absurd that Apple still uses WebEx.
Next question.
Next one in from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas, asking, what are the demands on crews for shows that run ridiculously long? Last night's World Series went to 18 innings.
Alex, go ahead.
The upside is that there are so many more advertising slots, and so there's lots of money being made. It's a little complicated because usually those slots were all sold by the 9th inning, so it's hard to know exactly where but there's people figure that out. So there's money being made. The downside is, number one, it is grueling. I've worked on a game that went 12 innings, and I just know that everyone was really tired by the end because they're all kind of paced to break down and everything else. And now you're going into overtime. And the problem with sports, with this is that there's you're not going to have like backups for someone else to swap in. You're just going to sit there and you're going to do the show until it's done. And so it can be a lot longer, and there's not really any way to break people. So the OT goes into this goes into time and a half, then double time, then by the that it gets pretty so everyone's making a good paycheck from they're already probably doing well. They're working on the World Series, but thousands of dollars per person probably was made in the overtime to kind of go down that path. So for 18 whole innings, it's just an incredible amount of time, so anyway, so I think that probably led into it. So it probably is it's probably good for them from a financial perspective. The good news is baseball does have little mini breaks, in each inning. So if you were doing basketball and it went that long, it would be hard for the athletes, but it'd also be really hard for the team. But with baseball, you get you get to at least look down and, grab a snack and a drink. But I don't, it's not like, I think they probably were fine. So but it is hard. And you get kind of into a zone of it, but it's not, it's an extra 2 or 3 hours. A lot of us have worked an extra 2 or 3 hours in production.
There are many ways to support us at Office Hours. Like or subscribe to us on YouTube, volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer, or donate at officehours.global/donate. That's officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Next one coming in from Tony Mobley asking, thank you, Chris Fenwick, for the authentic conversation about Amy Bradley. Anything else we should know?
Alex.
Oh, not me. Sorry, I don't know why I answered that
Chris,
one. Yeah, I have
ahead.
nothing to say. Chris, go. We'll throw it to Chris. I took it so I could throw it to Chris.
Oh, yeah, no. I will tell you, would clearly get out of Office Hours territory on that episode of Tony's show. But thank you for having me, Tony. Yeah, I will tell you this. I saw a post on the social medias the other day about how it was kind of cute. This woman was embarrassed by the fact that she realized, after being on a cruise for a couple of days, that there were cameras now, today in 2025, watching activity on everybody's balcony, which did not exist 27 years ago when Amy went missing. And there was an interesting, it's very interesting to watch the news stuff, and I'll just cut me off. When people confuse technology, there's been a lot of discussion about the cruise line saying that they had some cameras back in 1998, but they didn't record those cameras. And then there was discussion about the onboard videographer who recorded things. And it's very interesting to see how people get turned around and wrapped around themselves trying to reconcile bits of data that shouldn't be correlated. And that's what the main theme of Tony's discussion was, about truth in media and just how things get twisted. It's very interesting. I've had this post-it on my prompter for a couple of weeks now. Language fails us, and it's so true. It's very interesting to watch how people get confused and twisted around, and you just have to be super careful. Analyze everything. Alex tells the story about being in Africa and watching something on the news and then looking out the window and watching something on the news. It's like, I'm right there and it doesn't look anything like that. You just have to, I literally believe less and less and less of what I hear. You see all these posts of like, look at the crowd that was at such and such. And somebody goes, that was from 7 years ago at a totally different event. Like, we are being lied to left and right, from the left and the right. So I'm not pointing fingers in any one direction, but you can't believe what you see on TV. And now I'm not even talking about AI. It's nuts. It's nuts out there.
Alex.
Yeah, and I think it's important, if that's what Chris is digging into in that episode, I would definitely go back and watch it, because I think it's important that everybody really gets, and I've said this since the beginning of Office Hours, is that, and I've been saying it for a long time, is that you just have to be very careful, and you have to be very very cynical and distrusting of everything that you see, and that was for not the last year or 2 years, the last 250. I mean, Benjamin Franklin was slagging his competition in his own paper, in the 18th century. This is not, there's no new tale to tell here, but it's just that we all believed the same lies before, and now we all are subscribing to different lies. And and inside of all of that, you can start to find little grains of the truth, but that's only because you have to watch the news or read things from both sides, and then you can start to triangulate what they both agree to is closer to the truth. It may not be the truth, but it's closer to the truth. What they disagree on is their opinion. As long as you kind of go into, like looking at both sides, what does Fox and Al Jazeera agree on? This is what happened. What they say that means is their opinion. And you just have to kind of keep that in mind.
And what was interesting and comforting about the discussion that Tony and I had is, by the end of it, we did not agree, but we did it in a civil manner. Yeah. And that's part of my beef/concern about the hard stop of no politics, no religion here, because I think that when we stop talking about those things, we get bad at talking about those things. I admit we need to talk about those things. Maybe not here. Okay, yeah. Fine. But the hard stop in like breakout rooms and after hours, it's like, we as a nation need to learn how to disagree civilly.
Nobody disagrees with you on that, Fenwick. This is our sanctuary.
I think a lot of people do.
I think that I think that there is. I mean, as someone who grew up in a this is more of a Sunday conversation, but as someone who grew up in a cauldron of argument, like everyone's arguing all the time, and but not in a bad way. We were just always testing what we, like you'd have opinions and you'd run up against people, and for me, I've always been willing to change my opinion if someone beats me at it, So, because if I can't find a way to say it, now I may go back and lick my wounds and think about it some more. But I grew up where everybody's opinion was examined. Like you didn't have an opinion that you held you grasped onto, in a way that you said, like, this is going to be something that I'm willing to die on unless you've fought for it many times. So I think that that's really powerful. And I think that I have lots of friends on both sides of the aisle of all of these politics, and I don't have any, I'm happy to argue with them. But this is to Chris's point, I'm happy to argue with them to the level at which they're willing to argue. Because I can argue with someone that completely disagrees with me and thinks something that I completely disagree with. And the next, and in a minute later, we can be having drinks and talking about something completely different. It wouldn't bother me at all. Like, I don't have, to me that it has no impact on who they are for me, other than they have a different opinion. But the problem that we have, and I agree with that Chris is outlining, is that most people aren't like that anymore. And most people, and they believe that they can't talk to you anymore because you don't agree with them, and that's just absurd. So anyway, that's more of a Sunday question, but
they have to punch you on the street.
Whatever it is. I mean, So I think that it's a. I think that conversation and discussion, even vigorous discussion, is super powerful. And I think that we do need to do more of that. The problem is I don't have the tools to be able to manage it. It's not that I don't think we should ever do it in office hours, it's that I don't have the tools in which to manage it in a way that, because we have a generation or a couple generations of people who aren't good at it. And so I'm not ready to figure out how to teach everybody to do that inside of this environment. That's why we don't do it. Not because I don't think it's important or useful, just because I don't know how to do that without ripping the whole thing apart. So
next question.
Next one in from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. What best practices should media professionals follow when integrating Minimal Audio's new frequency shifter plugin into experimental sound design for electronic music or podcast intros? And he's got a link here to the Minimal Audio site.
Alexander.
Right, so this is the wave shifter plugin that Paul is talking about here, and it claims to be it looks like a really interesting plugin. I haven't actually had a chance to play with this. I'll certainly download the demo, but it says here, explore precise frequency shifting, ring modulation, amp modulation, flexible frequency controls, BPM syncing, tuning, and stereo spread. It does harmonic distortion and all that sort of stuff. Looks really interesting, Paul, but when it comes to the meat of the question, what you're asking, as someone who's a musician and who has written songs, never have I ever sat down and picked up my guitar and thought, what best practices should I be following when I'm writing this riff? Oftentimes there's really, when it comes to music, there's just the intuition aspect, the creativity aspect, what you felt like playing in the moment. And so while music theory is a thing and there are rules, so to speak, when it comes to playing scales, oftentimes musicians will break those rules. So I'll just give you one quick example. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but for example, like a pentatonic scale, that's one of the first things you learn as a guitar player, right? Now, you can play those notes in that scale, but if you want it to be interesting, you can go outside of that box and play notes, and when I hear guitar players do that, when they go out of that pattern, it really makes my ears perk and it makes me pay attention more. And so you don't really see artists really paying super close attention to those scales. They'll dance around that scale, but again, it comes down to creativity. There are no best practices that we're actively thinking about when we're writing. So I think that's something you got to think about when you're just messing around with stuff like this.
Next question.
Next one in from Tommy Chance in St. Paul, Minnesota, asking what would be a good headworn mic, wired mic setup, not wireless.
Oh, Jeffrey.
I think it's really going to depend on what you're doing with the headset microphone. You could have something, if you're doing it like in studio, have something very small and thin, like a DPA or something like that, that could be head-worn. Then you have to also worry about the connection, because it's going to depend on what type of wired or wireless system that you're going to go through. What I used to do with my shows was I had the standard, like the piles, like we used to talk about in the past, except mine came from England, and I don't even know if the brand exists anymore. But then I'd have it connected up. It was a 3-pin mini XLR that I hooked up to an XLR that went into the board. If you're talking something that's going to be in a more loud environment, like a sports event or something like that, you might want to look at something like the Audio-Technica, the BPH 51s, their head, the head with the cups and headset microphone from there. That way you can really control the sound. And of course, the connectors on there are going to be dual 1/4 inch, which you would then use a different type of wireless or wired system to send that information through.
Guy.
Yeah, my question would be, why do you want to go the head-worn setup if you're going wired? Typically, these are going to be wireless. You're going to have talent or a preacher or something walking around. So I have the Countryman H6, and that's what we use at my house of worship, and I love those. But you would want to watch some of the videos from DPA and look at the arsenal of, they just have a ton of these videos that are how-tos, and see if this appeals to you, because they went through the effort to make these. But notice, even though they say it's 20 hertz up to 20 kilohertz, so that should make it sound pretty full. But as we're talking into these, as Alex calls them, radio mics, these 1-inch capsules really have a fullness to them and go below 20. So depending on how full you want that read to be, or whatever that talent, if it's a tutorial or something like that, just be aware that there's better sounding mics out there, and it's really a challenge to get a full sound. And then the other thing is, if I am going to get a headworn, I like them wireless. That's one of those things where if you've seen that My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where the gal goes to walk away and the headset pulls off of her. I've had that happen with my wired headworn, trying to do some VO and then forgetting that I had it on, and you just rip it right off because it's XLR'd in. So I've owned that DPA 4066 with the XLR, and I've ripped it off my head more times than I could count. So just be aware of some of these things when you invest into a headworn mic.
Yeah, Tommy, this becomes a very, very important piece of equipment, which is the whatever you need for the headworn mic into XLR, and it better be perfect and it better be right. Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas, asking, in the age of AI and deepfakes, what ethical obligations do media producers have to distinguish between reality and fabrication, and how does this affect audience trust?
Jeffrey.
If you're talking in the news section, you have the news section, then you have actual production like making shows and movies and things like that. If you're talking in the news production, you're never probably going to see something like a CNET do anything like that unless they're reporting on the news or of AI and then showing off examples. I think the only way to really do it is to have those disclaimers if you are creating AI content within your regular content, to have those AI disclaimers everywhere. So if somebody says, yeah, that's AI, well, yeah, no, duh, we told you it was AI. So it's very important to make sure that happens. And then it's also important, if you see something that is AI, to report it and let people know if they didn't let people know, because then there's a question of trust at that point. And if they don't trust the content, then hopefully less people will start to go to it. But in this day and age, anybody can throw an AI video up on Facebook and call it real, and there's no real safeguards for anybody to call them out unless they're like really trying to pinpoint a finger or a hand with 6 fingers or something like that.
Alexander.
Yeah, I agree that there is some obligation to pay attention to this stuff. The problem is, and we're going to have this issue for a while now, until somebody develops some tools and standards or some way of within the metadata of the stuff that's being created to actually mark it clear as AI. And I think that that's going to be something that will become coming down the road with legislation. But until that day comes, I think it's going to be impossible. And even then, even when there are ways of baking that in, using the tools to bake that in, I think there are going to be nefarious people that are probably going to be developing their own AI systems where they'll be able to generate content that will skirt the rules of that. I've read enough dystopian science fiction to know that that's probably going to happen. If you've ever read Daniel Suarez's Damon, oh, that is a scary feature.
That'll do it for Office Hours for October the 28th. We would like to thank, in no particular order, our panel for sharing your expertise in life and professional experience, to the back-end crew for keeping the show running smoothly and organized, and of course, last but certainly not least, to our producers for your great questions that drive the show each and every day. Today, the Tlaloc traversal is 28,000 miles, 45,000 kilometers, or 221 million bananas for scale. We'll see you in After Hours.
Was that an official banana, Jason?
I don't know, Fenwick. It just depends. I mean, we don't talk about the politics of bananas. So, like
imperial banana.
You gave me this one, Chris. So this is the real deal. This
I
was
mean,
a
the question
Vegas
is
banana.
whether it's an imperial banana or a metric banana.
It's not a banana clip.
Have you guys seen the A4, A3, A2, A1, A0?
Yes.
Oh my
the
gosh.
paper.
The paper.
Yes.
Why one is so much better?
Yes, and why we're
they're so
idiots
much
for
better than
doing
8.5
anything
by
else.
11. Like, yeah, I mean,
It's so cool. It's metric
like,
paper.
it's metric paper.
Oh my gosh. I was like,
Yeah, it
How
makes you
did we
feel
get this
thought
so
about
wrong?
it makes you feel stupid for using paper that's 8.5 by 11.
No, I still believe that we innovate better in America because we have to do all this math in our head all the time, all these fractions and all the weird stuff.
Metric fractions.
It creates more
I used to be
cognitive
more sympathetic
lifting.
I used to be more sympathetic to the metric system until I bought a tool that was 4.5 millimeters. That's a fraction.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's
My
a
micrometer
fraction.
doesn't
It's a
care. I just
fraction.
have a
It's always a
button and it's
fraction
done.
over 10 or 100 or 1,000, not over 32.
Yeah, it's over 32nd. Or yeah.
All right. See you, everybody.